What is going on, Pats and Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here with another one. Make sure you guys let me know how the audio is sounding. Does it sound good? Does it sound bad? Does it sound weird? Um, Let me know how it is on your guys' end. But guys, so today basically what we're going to be doing, y'all let me know if I have to. Mr. Automotives in the chat. Y'all let me know if I do need to change the mic. Like I said, we are with some new tech in today's live stream. So I want to make sure that it does sound good, doesn't have any technical difficulties because I don't want to get too into the live if the audio is having some type of issue. So those of you who are currently in the chat, guys, before we get started, let me know in the chat. Audio sound crisp? Does it sound good? Or do I need to switch to the other mic? Did I see the end of the Bengals and Titans game? I didn't get to see the end of it because I wanted to hop onto here, but I was watching it. Crazy game. I don't even know who won the game right now. Like I was so focused on um just getting to the live because I was already late that I didn't even get to see who won the game. So let me know. Titans lost. Wow. Wow. Good for the Bengals. Holy, you're telling me that the Bengals are going to the championship round of the playoffs? Oh my God. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to the championship round of the playoffs. They are one win away. They are one win away from a Super Bowl trip. And let's remember too, if they end up playing the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of the season, they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, if it's the Buffalo Bills, it could be totally different. I'm not sure if the Bills played the Bengals earlier in the season. I'll have to check that out and watch that game if it was. I don't think they did, but I could be wrong. But the Chiefs and the Bengals did play late in the season, and the Bengals beat the Chiefs. So if the championship game is the Bengals and the Chiefs, there's a good chance the Bengals could actually be going to the Super Bowl. Can we talk about that for a second? I know we're here to talk about New England Patriots. Guys, this is going to be a Q&A, all right? We haven't done one of these in a while. Usually it's me and Patriots Football Breakdown out here talking to you guys. But this is going to be one of those we sit down. You guys ask me questions about the offseason, free agency, draft, whatever. And I'm going to be answering your questions. We haven't done one of these in a really long time. But wow. Honest to God, nothing but props to the Cincinnati Bengals, their coaching staff. I forget who their head coach is off the top of my head, but since he has entered that franchise, he's really turned it around. Joe Burrow has been fantastic. They have what I consider the best trio of wide receivers in the entire NFL. And I mean, dear God, we were talking about the Bills or the Bengals. The Bills or the Bengals playing the Patriots last week. And this could possibly be the two teams that are in the championship game making that last push for the Super Bowl. So the Patriots could have potentially had two of the hardest teams in the playoffs. Can you believe that? Wow. I don't know if I would rather see the Chiefs win tomorrow or the Bills. Honestly, I hope neither the Chiefs nor the Bills go to the Super Bowl. Honestly, I'm a Bengals fan right now. For the playoffs, I'm a Bengals fan because Patriots are eliminated. I don't want to see the Bills go to the damn Super Bowl, let alone win it. And I'm sick and tired of constantly seeing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Although I guess I wouldn't necessarily mind seeing them lose it again, but just knock them off the Super Bowl completely. Put the Bengals in there. I mean, that is an underdog statement right there by the Bengals. Wow. But my boy, Mr. Automotive, with the first donation of today, my brother, don't think that I forgot you. I just totally had to vent there about that fantastic Bengals win. Dear God. All right. Mr. Automotive, first donator of today's chat, my brother. I appreciate you. I appreciate your donations, guys, of course. Donating to the channel, becoming a Patreon member, which you guys can do. Link in the description below. First link, only $10 a month. You get exclusive benefits, videos that you can only find over on Patreon, will never be posted here on YouTube. Early access to videos, added to a group, a Discord chat with me, Pages Football Breakdown, and other Patreon members. Really helps support the channel. Of course, also donating helps the channel out tremendously. You guys have no idea how much donations and all help the channel. But I do understand not everybody is able to donate. 100% totally get that. So if you are not, you still want to give back to the channel, even just leaving a like on the video, sharing it with your friends, posting us on social media, little things like that go a long way, especially your constant support of liking all my videos, the live streams, tuning in as much as you can, watching the full length of the videos, guys. It really, really, really helps out tremendously. But Mr. Automotive, my boy, you said let's go. Sounds good. I appreciate you, my man. Let's hop into this one. Let's get into some questions here. Like I mentioned earlier, guys, this is basically going to be the old live streams that we used to do. This is going to be one of those chill, laid back ones where there's not really a game plan. There's not a script I have laid out for this. This isn't one with Patriots Football Breakdown where him and I are going at it from a post game standpoint. This is going to be one of those old fashioned Patriots Global live streams where we're going to be talking about the draft. We're going to be talking about the offseason for the Patriots in general, free agency, their pending free agents. You guys ask the questions, and Patriots Global is here to answer them. So drop your questions here in the chat, and I'll definitely try to pick out the best ones, the ones that are most frequently asked. Neil Rayman, what is going on? Johnny, what's going on? If you're a Patriots fan, yes, I agree with this comment. If you're a Pats fan, you're rooting for the Bengals right now. If you're a Patriots fan, you don't want to see the Bills go to the Super Bowl because they're already cocky enough. I don't want to hear about, we run the East and now we run the NFL, Super Bowl champs. Like, I cannot stand Bills fans, okay? It's like Eagles fans and Bills fans are some of the worst out there. And then Chiefs fans, just to see them there again, and even if it's a loss, like the fact that they even get there is enough for me, let alone them potentially winning another one. So I'm good. I love to see the Bengals there. Even if the Bengals lose the Super Bowl by a long shot, just to get there, I think is the elite underdog mentality to showcase, you know what, we are a real legit team. We are not to be messed with. And I think they're already showcasing that. But for them to even make a Super Bowl run even further points out that statement. As for the NFC, I don't have anything against really any of these NFC teams. I would love to see the Rams win the Super Bowl. As long as the Patriots aren't in them, I really don't care NFC wise. I wouldn't mind seeing Brady get another ring. Wouldn't mind seeing Aaron Rodgers go ahead and get a ring before he leaves Green Bay. Although what I will say is that I did lose some respect for Aaron Rodgers after an interview recently came out where he was throwing some passes, doing some type of thing with an interview, and he was like, "Oh, these are firm. Patriots wouldn't like these." So I lost some respect there for Aaron Rodgers. So I wouldn't. He's probably at my lower on the list now to actually want to see win a Super Bowl. But nonetheless, when it comes to NFC, I don't really care as long as the Patriots aren't against them. Sup, Mr. Automotive King always donating. Yes, sir. That is the king of the channel. Really, it's brought to you by Mr. Automotive. That's what the channel's brought to you by. McChicken Vlogs. What is going on, man? Haven't seen you here in a while. Johnny C says, I don't see Buffalo beating Kansas City tomorrow. That's an interesting take. I don't think they played each other either this season. I know we didn't play them. I don't think they did. I could be wrong. Oh, wait, no, yes, they did. I believe they did. They did play them this season. It was a very close game. It's gonna be a really good matchup between those two teams. Kansas City can definitely give them a run for their money, but that defense is going to have to step up tremendously. I think the Bills defense, or the Kansas City Chiefs defense are going to have to step up. The Bills defense has been performing just outstanding. They've been spectacular in all three phases. Their coaching has been amazing. But then you look at the special teams, you look at the offense, you look at the defense. They kind of hit a bump after the Patriots beat them. And then since then, they kind of hit that road down for a while. And since then, they've been really skydiving in an upwards trajectory. So they're a tough team to beat because they're not like the Kansas City Chiefs, who they're elite on offense, and that's really what defines the team. Their defense has gotten better, but it definitely has some holes, as where the Bills are not a one-dimensional team. They're elite from top to bottom on every side of the football, as where the Kansas City Chiefs are really more elite on one side, which is really what helps drag the team. So I think it's definitely going to be a game that goes both ways. I think it's going to come down to coaching. That's what my honest to God thought is, if the Kansas City Chiefs can just take care of the football, not have stupid, costly turnovers, it's going to come down to who's the best coach, who has the best game plan. And I could see it going both ways, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Andy Reid come out on top if that's what that does come down to. Dorito God, what is going on? What are some value targets that we should target in free agency? So this is a tough one in general with free agency, guys. I'm gonna be dropping a video on a few ways the Patriots can free up some cap space. I recently watched something on CLNS Media where Miguel with the Patriots cap, he covers all that on Twitter. You guys should know who he is if you know anything about Patriots Twitter. And he kind of broke down a lot of really useful ways the Patriots can free up some cap space because they're only sitting at a few million heading into free agency in March. Now, they're not at the bottom tier of the NFL in cap space, but they're not at the top like they were a year ago when they went on this big splurge. They're going to be more middle tier. But there's a lot of moves they can do to make them kind of sit at that 20 to 40 million dollar range in cap space, and they're going to need to do so, especially if you want to bring JC Jackson back. That's going to take up about half your cap space in general, depending on if you franchise tag him or if you get a long-term extension done. So right now it's kind of hard just because we're not sitting at where we were a year ago when we have a lot of money to be able to say, okay, you put your money here, you put your money here, you put your money here. Because right now we only have a couple million, which really you're going to say, okay, here, Devin McCourty, here's all the money we have, and now we're done. We can discuss potential ways they can free up cap space, which, like I said, we're going to do, not in today's live stream, but in a video that I'll be dropping soon. But it's a totally different thing for the team to actually do it, because we're kind of just discussing potential ways versus it being a reality and them actually doing it, which they'll definitely try to clear some cap space. The question mark is going to be, how much are they actually going to do? With that being said, I don't see them going out and doing anything big, doing anything major. I could really see this being a thing where JC Jackson ends up being the big move of the offseason. JC Jackson comes back, and that's your big offseason signing. And I know we want to get younger. We want to get faster. That's kind of the big thing people are pushing for. which is totally understandable. Ideally, that is what you want, especially if you're looking defensively in the secondary, more specifically at the cornerback position. Because the Patriots don't exactly have that money to be able to go out and sign some of these young, talented free agents, again, in the situation in the secondary, I could see them going a different route and trying to pick up guys who maybe haven't panned out in the NFL, who in college or coming out of the draft were high names, were high end names with high quality, high potential that the Patriots try to take a chance on, or even doing something like signing some of these old veteran players, something like with Patrick Peterson, where a lot of teams are going to pass on him, but he's one of the best cornerbacks of this past era, of this past decade, really, if you look at it. He was an all pro cornerback with Arizona, but he's kind of dropped off the past couple of seasons, especially last year with the Vikings, where he definitely does not have that high quality name or that high quality market that he used to. And because of that, the Patriots can get someone like that on a cheaper market, especially in this cap situation that they're dealing with. And then you kind of hope that Belichick can turn them around and try to switch them into those old kind of all pro days that they once had. I mean, let's remember Stephon Gilmore was on a downhill trajectory before he came to the Patriots, and Belichick really switched it up. So that's something that I could really see them doing. So I've actually seen a lot of people comment this. I will say when it comes to the draft, I'm just getting into my draft uh not analysis, but draft kind of process. For me, I'm not too into the draft process during the regular season because that's a lot of the analytical stuff and you're breaking down the games and you're breaking down the matchups. My draft process doesn't really start until the off season. So I will say I have started my draft process. So I am somewhat familiar with these guys, but you're not going to get really these in-depth analysis on these players. Um, I would say still for another couple of months. I'm still going to drop some draft stuff, but you're not going to see that bulk of draft stuff for another month or two. We kind of are going to focus more on free agency and then kind of build up into the draft. But I've seen a lot of people talk about Traylon Burks. He does have good size, like you mentioned, 6'3", 225 pounds, good route runner and good speed. The question mark is he going to be at a position where the Patriots are going to grab him? Now, me personally, I don't see the Patriots going out grabbing a wide receiver in the first round. I feel like every year these mock drafts have the Patriots taking a wide receiver in the first round. And let's ask ourselves, how many times has Bill Belichick drafted a wide receiver in the first round? Once. Belichick drafted a wide receiver in the first round once in his entire career. And that was just a couple of years ago. You guys know who that player was? That player was N'Keal Harry. Look how that turned out. I just think that at this point, when it comes to wide receivers, Belichick's more comfortable with drafting them um, at the highest second round. Because let's remember, even N'Keal Harry was the 32nd pick overall. So I think that he's more comfortable with getting at the wide receivers earliest at the second round, but more so in your later rounds of the draft, but then via trade and then via free agency, get guys that are proven in the NFL, and you kind of have an idea already on how they should be used at an NFL level. So, when it comes to the draft and what I think they could potentially do with like the first overall pick, I'm thinking more about offensive line. We could see offensive tackle. It's very likely that we could see offensive tackle. Cornerback. That's another one that I think could be very, very likely. Depending on I got to see how the linebacker class is looking, but linebacker could very well be another one. I would say that personally, those are the top three positions I would look at for the Patriots to draft in the first round. And I wouldn't even put out the Patriots trading out of the first round because you currently look at that draft capital that New England has right now, and it's not great. Okay. They're looking at a first, a second, trying to think. I don't have it all off the top of my head. I know they don't have a fifth round pick this year, and they don't have a 7th round pick. So I think they have a first, second, third, fourth, and sixth. So if it comes to a bidding war for some type of offseason trade, New England's not looking too hot. This isn't like they had elite draft capital a year ago. In 2023, they'll already look like they're having some good draft capital. They already have an extra 7th round pick. They'll have an extra extra 4th round pick from the Sonny Michel trade, and likely comp picks that they'll get next year. Because the Patriots went out on a huge free agency splurge last year, we're not getting any comp picks this year. So the Patriots don't have as many draft picks also. So it wouldn't surprise me to see this team possibly trade out of the first round and try to compile some extra picks up, especially because the lack of money we have. Getting these younger players via the draft on very cheap 4-year deals would really be that classic Bill Belichick move to try and help address some of these needs. So Rise Productions ask a question that I think everybody was waiting for. Everybody's waiting for. So I do actually have a video, I will say. I have a video that I am going to be making on this topic. So you're going to get more in-depth version in that video. I'm going to kind of briefly touch upon it right now for you. But in this upcoming video, I'll be touching, upon the contract, the likelihood, what the compensation could potentially be in this trade, the likelihood of the trade. But to answer your question, I would say the chances of a Calvin Ridley trade in general are fairly high. From the sounds of what I'm hearing around the NFL, Calvin Ridley does not want to play for the Atlanta Falcons. What exactly is that reasoning? I'm not sure. I know he was stepping away from football because he was dealing with some mental health issues. Does that have something to do with the Falcons? Maybe, maybe not. I definitely believe we'll hear more about the story as time goes on. But if Calvin Ridley does not want to play for the Falcons, and he already stepped away from football for really this entire 2021 season because of it, I don't see him returning to the Atlanta Falcons this offseason. So they can keep him, but it's not going to help them at all because he's not going to play for them. So I really do believe that we will see Calvin Ridley traded this offseason, but that doesn't mean we are going to see him traded to the New England Patriots, which I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed to hear. Unfortunately, when you look at trades, the team is going to do what is best for the team. Unless Calvin Ridley says specifically, I'm going to the New England Patriots. If you trade me anywhere else, that trade will not go through. Kind of like Gronk did when the Patriots tried to trade him to the Detroit Lions a few years ago. He said, nope, not doing that. Sorry. And it couldn't happen because he refused to do it. If Calvin Ridley does that and says the only way I'll be traded and be okay with it is if I go to the Patriots, then it's a done deal. But unfortunately, you look at other teams. You look at teams like the Giants. You look at teams like the Eagles. You look at teams like the Dolphins. Teams who are stacked on draft capital, especially in the first round. They're in a better position to make those trades for potentially, in this case, let's say a Calvin Ridley than the Patriots do. Because again, you look at the draft capital that the Patriots have right now for this year, and it's not great. Yeah, they have a first round pick. They have a second round pick. They have a third round pick, a fourth round pick. But they only have one pick in each round, and they don't have a seventh, and they don't have a fifth. And at the end of the day, teams are more interested in draft capital than other players, unless it's an established player, which I don't really think the Patriots have established players that they're comfortable with just giving away to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons do need help on defense tremendously, and the Patriots do have a lot of these young edge rush guys, right? Josh Uche, Chase Winovich, two names that I could really see out of the door. Maybe they like Jarrett Stidham a little bit and you can ship that package. Maybe the Patriots can do a second round pick, Josh Uche and Jarrett Stidham. And maybe that's how you get Calvin Ridley. But I even still, in that case, believe that you're likely going to have to throw in some type of 2023 draft capital also. But again, teams usually don't look for those players. If it came down to that trade scenario versus, let's say, the Eagles offering a first round pick and a second round pick, the Falcons are easily going to go with the first and second round pick because draft capital is just that much more valuable to NFL teams. And that's just what concerns me with the whole Calvin Ridley situation is that the Patriots are just going to get outbid for him because they're not in the same standpoint this offseason that they were last offseason to make these type of moves. Mr. Automotive thinks that the 49ers are going to be Green Bay tonight. So you think there's going to be another upset. So the two top teams in the AFC and NFC, you have losing. Interesting. See, I think the 49ers could win too. There's a very good chance they could win. They've been playing hot. Excuse me. They've definitely been playing hot. So it looks like we have another question here about a free agent wide receiver. What are my thoughts on Chris Godwin for the Patriots? I think Bill can make him play even better. I do too, and I really like the idea of adding another fast receiver. And this is a way better receiver than Nelson Aguilar, 100%. Now, Chris Godwin is not just a speedster. He is also someone with a very good route tree and very, very capable hands. This isn't someone you're going to see, randomly dropping balls like you'll see at times from Nelson Aguilar. Now, I know that the Patriots do run more of a short to intermediate route with a highly run-based offense, but I'm really curious to see how this offense would open up with not just one speedster, but two speedsters. I know they don't have the money for it, but just kind of food for thought thinking what it would look like if the Patriots had Nelson Aguilar on one side and then putting Chris Godwin either on the other side of Nelson Aguilar, putting him in the slot and having two speedsters stretch the field. I'm curious to see how that would change the dynamic for the Patriots here because obviously in Nelson Aguilar, you're already attracting some safety help. But when you have to accompany for two speedsters, especially with an elite one at the level of Chris Godwin, I wonder how that could really open up the scheme for the Patriots. Now, from a realistic standpoint, Chris Godwin's not going to come to the New England Patriots. It's not going to happen. He is the second best wide receiver on this market. Maybe if this was a year ago, we could talk about it from a realistic standpoint. But again, the Patriots have absolutely no money. Right now, they only have a couple of $1 million before making any potential roster moves. And you still have to re-sign your players. You're still number one. You got to bring JC Jackson back, and that's going to be a hefty deal. It's looking like it's going to be somewhere between um, 15 to 18 million dollars if they place that franchise tag on him. And even if they are able to get a contract extension done with him, it's going to be well over $10 million. So that's still going to take up a big portion of your money. You're not going to have that money to give Chris Godwin. I know Tampa's still going to really try and retain him. I don't know how well they're going to be able to do, but I know that their thought is really focused on trying to retain Chris Godwin this offseason. But I would love to see Chris Godwin. I mean, that's your number one receiver right there. We're talking about the Patriots needing a number one wide receiver. Well, hey, you sign Chris Godwin. There's your number one wide receiver. There's a guy who runs really good routes, can help you out in the short to intermediate routes, but also kind of play that role in being a speedster that can take safety help over the top. And like I said, I would like to see two speedsters on this offense, but I mean, you bring Chris Godwin in and you can save the hefty deal of over $10 million that you're supposed to pay Nelson Aguilar for this season. So, but from a realistic standpoint, obviously, I just don't see it happening. I think, other teams are going to for sure bid them out. I want to give a big shout out to here, Josh Mitchell. He gave us another donation in the chat. He is the second donator of today. Big shout out to you, Josh. Really appreciate your support. Really appreciate the donation and giving back to me in the channel. Really, the best way I can make this a full-time job and give you guys more content is for me to obviously be in a good financial a place with the channel. So the more you guys give back to the channel, support me in the channel, the more that dream is able to flourish and become a reality. So big shout out to you there, Josh. You said thinking the Patriots should target wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson in the draft. reminds me of Debo. So he is someone I've heard a little bit about. I have heard him kind of correlated back to Debo a little bit. I have heard that he is starting to rise up draft boards quite a bit. And of course, this is way too soon in the process to be able to say what people think now versus what's actually going to happen in April. But he's definitely a guy that I want to do more of my homework on, depending on what round he can go in. Like I said, he is rising up draft boards, but depending on what round he could go in, he might be someone that I would like to put in my mock drafts as long as he ends up not going in the first round. Let's see. This is a good question. This is a good question. Christian Kirk or Braxton Berrios? So I'm going to go on a little tangent here. Braxton Berrios was a one of my favorite selections of the Patriots draft that year. I was a big fan of Braxton Berrios. I was there to see him in training camp multiple times, and I thought that he had genuine potential. I saw what he was able to do. I know that he wasn't really ever able to be given the genuine opportunity. And then obviously the Patriots let him go, and he ends up signing with the Jets. And we've seen since then how much that's worked out for Braxton Berrios. I think that Braxton Berrios could have been one of the next good Patriot slot receivers. And right now, the Patriots are really looking for their next real good slot receiver. And I think Braxton Berrios could have been that guy. Obviously, he was a all-pro in kick returner this year, so you kind of could have killed two birds with one stone. And I mean, I knew when the Patriots let Braxton Berrios go that it was going to be a mistake. And ultimately, that's exactly what happened. But from a realistic standpoint, if I could choose between Christian Kirk or Braxton Berrios, I would choose Christian Kirk. I actually want to try and include Christian Kirk in some of my offseason videos somehow because I think that he would fit the Patriots scheme, fit the Patriots mold, and what they want to do with their offensive identity really well. Now, he brings some speed, but he's not a guy that you're just going to rely on being a downfield threat. Really good route tree, but works really well in those short to intermediate routes and could really fill in that slot for the Patriots. Smaller wide receiver, not someone you really want to play on the outside, but the Patriots really need someone explosive in the slot, somebody to make explosive plays in the middle of the field. And I actually think Christian Kirk could be really good for the Patriots, but don't want to get too much into that because, like I said, I'll definitely be touching about that on my channel. So here's another really good question. Do I think that the New England Patriots should trade Jonnu Smith? No. Can the Patriots trade Jonnu Smith? Also no. So I don't think they should trade him, but also even if they could, do I think they should? No. You know, I think it was Josh McDaniels who touched on this in an interview earlier this season where really the new guys you're bringing in, whether that's via trade, via free agency, via draft, this is really a building year for them within your system, whether that's offense or defense. It's a building year system. You want them to produce as fast as possible. You want them to produce and make that impact year one 120%. But the realistic side of that is that that's not going to happen in most cases. Now, we expected more from Jonnu Smith in year one, and that's completely understandable. He was a high disappointment. He was probably the biggest disappointment of this year. But I'm not ready to give up after 1 year. Belichick signed him to that big contract, that 4-year contract for a reason. And I think we saw some glimpses of what Jonnu can be throughout the season, earlier in the season, but still throughout the season, we saw some ability of Jonnu Smith. And I think that Jonnu Smith is just the type of player who is going to need some time to really explode. He's not the type of guy that you're going to plug in year one and he's going to just bounce off all of a sudden. Now, I think that he could have been much more utilized in the red zone and could have been more of a factor and produced there more for the Patriots for sure. But if we're truly talking about Jonnu popping off with his potential with the Patriots, I don't think that that was ever going to come year one. And you say, well, he was the first tight end you signed. You signed him to a bigger contract than you did Hunter Henry, and Hunter Henry popped off in a bigger way. You knew what you were getting with Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry was pretty proven, but he also fit pretty perfectly within the Patriots system. He was that mold of Gronkowski. That's what Hunter Henry was. He was that mold of Gronkowski, as where Jonnu Smith, not that mold of Hunter Henry or Rob Gronkowski in any way, shape, or form. He's not your classic tight end. He's not the tight end you're gonna, ask to line up and beat defenders in man coverage, shut out guys with his body and make spectacular catches with an excellent route tree. That's not Jonnu Smith, and it never was. Jonnu Smith has always been a gadget player. And I put that into perspective in a way of, do you remember when we were talking about Curtis Samuel coming to the New England Patriots, right? Curtis Samuel isn't your classic wide receiver you line up on the side, ask to catch passes, and has an excellent route tree. He is a guy you want in space also. He is a gadget player you put in several different places on the offense, and that is Jonnu Smith. That is exactly Jonnu Smith, but instead of being a receiver, he's a tight end. And the Patriots this offseason really need to figure out different creative ways that they can use Jonnu Smith. The difference between Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith is that Hunter Henry can get open in the passing game, and he's going to contribute in the passing game, but he's going to get open. You're going to pass him the ball, and he's not going to really give you anything after the catch. He gets open, gets the ball, goes down, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're looking for a guy to do something with the ball once he gets it in his hands, that's Jonnu Smith. So you need to find ways to get Jonnu Smith with the ball in his hand in open space. Whether that's giving him more opportunities in the run game, whether that's giving him some opportunities in screen passes or misdirection plays, you want Jonnu Smith to get the ball in his hand and give him a window to do something after the catch, because that is where Jonnu Smith shines. That is his game. That is where he's a polar opposite between Hunter Henry. And you have to know, when you signed him to that big 4-year contract, he was one of the first free agents they signed, even before Hunter Henry. You had to know that you had some type of plan for him. And I still firmly believe that the Patriots do. And again, just because it didn't pan out year one doesn't mean it's not going to pan out at all. And Josh McDaniels himself even said that. But they also can't trade him just because of his cap number. If the Patriots released him or traded him, they'd be screwed. They would be losing money. And there's just no point in doing that unless a team was willing to take on that contract and signing bonus. And yeah, it just gets way too complicated. The realistic side of it is that the Patriots can't trade him. So yeah, he's not going anywhere. Make sure we don't have any more donations that I missed. So I know Nelson Aguilar is getting a lot of hate this season, and somewhat rightfully so, and somewhat not rightfully so. So I will say about this play is that was just an excellent play by Micah Hyde. I mean, that was an unrealistic play by him. Mac Jones, perfect pass. I think at that point, Aguilar just saw that pass coming down. He didn't even see Micah Hyde coming, and he was expecting that ball to just drop down, and then Micah Hyde comes out of nowhere and totally just jumps the ball and creates that excellent interception. So I don't really put that on Mac Jones and really even Nelson Aguilar. Now you can try to say, oh, we should have tried to fight for the ball a little bit more, but I mean, I look at that play and I go, you know what? Wide open. He's trying to focus on, catching the pass. Perfect pass by Mac, and just a way better play by Micah Hyde than either Mac Jones or Nelson Aguilar. But what I will say is that you hope to see Nelson Aguilar a little bit more involved. Now, he was dealing with some injuries also, but I feel like Nelson Aguilar is the type of guy who the Patriots need, in the sense of he draws attention away from the short to intermediate routes. When Nelson Aguilar was playing with the Patriots versus when he was injured, things were like day and night. Defenses have to account for Nelson Aguilar. Okay, dropping safeties back, double teaming him, which helps the Patriots in their short to intermediate routes because when Nelson Aguilar's out of the game, there's no other speedster. You don't have to account for these downfield passes, deep field threats. So defenses are able to really stack the box and prevent any short to intermediate gains for the Patriots, whether that's the run game or the passing game. And that really shuts it down then for the offense, which is why a speedster, in this case, Nelson Aguilar, is really important for the Patriots. It goes way beyond stats at that point. It goes way beyond catches, targets, yards. It really gets brought up to a standpoint on what he does when you go back and you watch the film. Now, is he worth the money the Patriots are giving him? Not at all. Not at all. And I'm not going to say the Patriots could have done the same thing with Damiere Byrd because they couldn't. Defenses aren't going to respect Damiere Byrd the way they're going to Nelson Aguilar. But I feel like there's other routes the Patriots could have gone that could have saved them money, or even just not giving Nelson Aguilar that big of a contract. Now, hopefully they'll be able to do some things in which they can get him more involved. I think early on in the season, they did some really good things with Nelson Aguilar that made him productive, that got him really involved early in the season. But then as the season progressed, they went away from it. He got injured, and that's kind of where the flaws started to hit. So he has 1 year left on his contract. I'm not even sold that he'll be with the Patriots in 2022 for next season. I think the Patriots actually have the option to opt out of that contract this offseason. And if they can, it will save them a lot of money, a lot of needed money. But again, you still need that downfield threat, or else defenses are just going to stack the box and take away that short to intermediate route for you. You need that speedster on the outside. So it's going to bring up a really big, interesting question for the Patriots and Belichick this offseason. To kind of piggyback off of that, I think Johnny C does bring up a good point that if we secure a true wide receiver one, Aguilar could prove his contract worthwhile. I think that's a really good point. You know, like I said, right now, Nelson Aguilar is kind of treated in most cases as your wide receiver one because of that deep threat, him being the only deep threat and that speed. Defensive have to respect him. If you have a wide receiver one that's already taking that attention away, whether that's double teams or safeties dropping over him, that's going to kind of drop Nelson Aguilar to your wide receiver two, which is going to help open him up, go up against the easier defenders, and really just get that attention taken away from him, which I think could really help him be more productive for the Patriots and really help everyone else below him, guys like Kendrick Bourne, Jakobi Meyers, to be more successful, more productive also. I just think in general, retaining a true wide receiver one is what this offense is missing. And I think it will really open up the entirety of the offense if they are able to somehow bring in a true and pure wide receiver one. What do I see happening with Big Mike Onwenu this season? This is another really good question. There's a couple of things that I could see happening with the offensive line. Now, we have to get Mike Onwenu back into the mix. You have to get him involved. He cannot be a swing tackle. He can't come in as a big tight end anymore. He needs to continuously be a starting piece to this offense. It needs to be a part of the offensive line. With that being said, Trent Brown, he's a free agent. You're starting right tackle. With this also being said, Ted Karras, he's going to be a free agent also. That is now your starting left guard and your starting right tackle who are out of the mix. Obviously, he can't substitute in both at the same time. Then you also have Isaiah Wynn, who they signed to that fifth-year option. He's going to be making about $10 million just for this season. One of the easy ways that you could save cap space in general is to either extend Isaiah Wynn or to trade him. Obviously, Isaiah Wynn, over his tenure with the Patriots, he's had good moments, has had issues staying healthy. And then this past year, when he was, for the most part, able to stay healthy, didn't perform all that well. So I think a trade is not off the table also. I think there's several different things that they could do. I could potentially see them trying to retain Ted Karras. You keep Ted Karras at left guard because he performed really well at left guard for the Patriots, a starting caliber guard also. Then you have David Andrews at center, Shaq Mason at right guard. Then you would have either Isaiah Wynn at left tackle and Mike Onwenu at right tackle, or you bring back Trent Brown and have him start at either. You probably move him back to left tackle. Trade, like I said, Isaiah Wynn, and then put Mike Onwenu there at right tackle. I think there's a lot of things that they can do statistically. Mike Onwenu has performed better at tackle when he does play tackle. He's one of the best tackles in the league. But we do know the Patriots do like him at guard. I just think tackle is way more valuable, and he's performed really well at tackle. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him placed at the tackle position. It's a lot easier to find a quality guard, whether that's left guard or right guard, in the NFL than it is to find a quality tackle. So there's a lot of different things they can do with him, but I think the best bet, honestly, and even cap wise to save money is to bring back Ted Karras on a smaller deal, put him at left guard, and swing Onwenu there out to right tackle. Coaching standpoints already. If Josh goes to the Raiders, he'll lose more than us. I wouldn't see why he'd want to go to the Raiders. He's had so many opportunities over the last several seasons. Why he'd want to go to the Raiders? I mean, that's a true rebuild. They don't have a lot going for them. So to really rebuild from the ground up, I don't see why Josh McDaniels would finally say, you know what, I'm going to leave the Patriots and I'm going to go to the Raiders. Again, they don't have a lot going for them. I don't see what would be so intriguing about them. But you have to think that at least one person from the Patriots personnel group is going to be leaving, whether that's Gerard Mayo, whether that's Josh McDaniels, whether that's Elliott Wolf. We have several different pieces interviewing all over the NFL, not just for head coaching jobs, but also general manager jobs also. So at least one guy you have to think is out of the building. I think Josh McDaniels ultimately does stay, but I do think that Gerard Mayo does end up leaving. I don't think he goes to the Broncos. I think Dan Quinn is gonna end up being the head coach there for the Broncos. But there's several different places that Gerard Mayo can go, and I think he's going to be a good head coach in the league. Right. Oh, see, we have a donation. Scroll back up. Big shout out here to S27 for the super chat donation. Again, much love. Thank you for supporting me, supporting the channel. Your donations really do help me and the channel out and the production of the channel and production of these videos. You said trade for Juju Smith-Schuster, give up Shaq Mason. So Juju Smith-Schuster is actually going to be a free agent at the end of this season, meaning that if the Patriots want, they could actually go ahead and sign Juju. I think Juju would be a good system fit. What's his market going to be like is the bigger question to me. I think that he's a top 5 free agent wide receiver, just lower tier on that list, and that could potentially bode well for the Patriots if they do want to try to go ahead and sign Juju Smith-Schuster, because you have guys like Davante Adams, you have guys like Chris Godwin, you have so many top tier wide receivers in this free agency market that some of these guys are not going to get paid the highest market. So I wouldn't mind seeing Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that he'd fit the Patriots system well. He could be a deep threat. He works really well the short to intermediate route. Good hands, really good route tree. I wouldn't mind seeing Juju. I've always said that. I even said that last year before he re-signed with the Steelers. I wouldn't mind seeing him But again, it all comes down to money. As for giving up Shaq Mason, I know that's been thrown around a lot. That's going to be an easy way for them to save money, but I think the talent level that Shaq Mason brings is going to cost you. He's one of the most, if not the most underrated guard in the entire league. I think he's a top 10 guard easily in the National Football League. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten first team or second team all pro at all in his career, let alone a Pro Bowl. And consistently each and every single year, he is a top 5 graded Patriot. Each and every single year, very consistent. You don't want to give that up just to save a little bit of money, because I think ultimately what you're going to do with that money isn't going to live up to the same expectations that you're going to get with Jack Mason. Right. I think Wavy brings up a good point here. He says, let's be real. We need to get faster. You can't expect to um, a rookie quarterback to dot down the field. We need big play opportunities and get faster on both sides of the ball. I think that that's really the aspect the Patriots need. It doesn't matter what position you're talking about. If you have one quality you're saying for the Patriots as a unit, what do they have to do? What do they need to add to this team? It's to get faster. You look at linebacker, slow. It's killed them. You look at the defense in general for the most part. Jonathan Jones is one of your fastest players. He was out. Nelson Aguilar is probably your next closest. He was out for a quarter to half the season too. He was out for a good amount of time. The Patriots need to get faster, especially when you look at behind the defensive line. The linebackers, they need to be faster. That's really your second mark of defense when it comes to the running game and even the passing game also, because the defensive line is really meant to take on blocks. You're relying on your linebackers to come through and then make those plays, but the Patriots have very, very slow linebackers between Jawan Bentley, um, Dante Hightower, who are really your top 2 linebackers that are being utilized. The Patriots definitely need to get faster, even too, on offense. And what that really comes down to is explosiveness. The Patriots have no explosive players offensively. I think Kendrick Bourne does bring some explosive ability, but for the most part, these guys are too slow. And that's also not helping Mac Jones, who needs to get the ball out quick. So I definitely say that that's an aspect the Patriots need is to get faster. But guys, we're running on 53 minutes here. I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsors of the channel, betonline.ag. Guys, for all of your betting needs, make sure you head to BetOnline, whether it's football, basketball, boxing, even if you want to bet on your regular Vegas casino games. BetOnline is the #1 place to do that. They, of course, are the #1 spot also for all pro and college football action. They have a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests than ever before. And they continue to be the #1 source for everything football. As we continue to head on with NFL playoffs and head into the Super Bowl, no better time to bet. And make sure you guys are doing it with BetOnline. All you guys have to do is head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 100% off welcome bonus. Guys, that is double your initial deposit just for signing up. And don't forget to use that promo code NFL100. This is BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. But I want to appreciate each and every single one of you that popped out in today's chat. I do see we did get one more donation here of the chat. Another one here from Josh Mitchell. Really do appreciate it. Before we end this off, I do want to answer your question. You said, what do you think about DJ Chark? Shouldn't be too much on the market. I don't think he'll be too much. I do like the speed he brings down the field. Consistency is my concern there with DJ Chark. I don't think you're getting too much more value with him than you are Nelson Aguilar, to be completely honest with you. Maybe a tad bit more consistency, but for the most part, I think you're getting again, for the most part, I think you're getting the same value. And you're not gonna really have necessarily the money to go out and sign a guy like DJ Shark when you have somebody who is pretty much a replica in Nelson Aguilar now. If you got rid of Nelson Aguilar and you could get DJ Shark on a cheaper deal, 100% I'd do it. But I would say he's kind of just that little bit of a lower budget Nelson Aguilar. He would definitely fill within that same role. But Josh Mitchell, really appreciate you for your second donation of today's chat. Really means a lot. All right. All right, guys, but that's going to be it for today's live stream. We're going to be doing a lot more like this, getting back to kind of the old live streams where, I'll definitely hop on more with Pages Football Breakdown. We'll do some professional live streams for you guys, but also doing some of these laid back ones where we just sit back, have a theme, and we just answer your guys' questions. I definitely love doing these types of live streams, and it's been months since we've done one, and I definitely don't want to continue that stream there. So, we'll definitely be back. Make sure you guys continue to watch the channel. A lot of content coming your way. Make sure you guys check out the content that I dropped earlier today. Leave a like on those videos. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so for all of your New England Patriots news, guys. I appreciate you. I love you. Stay up to date with the channel as we enter free agency, draft, and all of the great stuff. Turn on those post notifications. But until then, I will catch you in the